Welcome back to Thirst Time. In this episode, I am discussing the final release from the late music producer Sophie. When I realised this album was coming out, I was nervous to listen to it, and what I can say about it, it's really made for earphones. If you're not listening to it with earphones, you're not really understanding the complexity and the dimension that Sophie has created. I guess, as usual, I'll give a bit of context. Obviously, the song Reason Why is like the bop of a decade. Remixes such as Lip Gloss, Charlie XCX's Lip Gloss. I just love the build. It's so incredible on such a level. I have not discovered the, I believe, first album, The Oil of Every Pearl's Uninsides. Literally, like, my mind tries to figure out what is an uninside. It's literally talking about something that isn't physically perceptible, what lies behind this world. I get so much of that out of Sophie's music, especially in this last album. And she has her intro, which is basically an overture, and it's amazing when you could classify them as a pop artist being popular, has an overture for an opening. I'm thinking of Bjork's, I believe it was Dancer in the Dark soundtrack. She showed like full musical capacity and talent. What I love about Sophie's intro is, firstly, it's very reminiscent of the amazing music. I think it's Oscar-winning music for the film Zone of Interest. Just with like such a small kind of a sample, how it could just play over and over again, and as it repeats, it just builds layers and forms into a thing, and at the same time it suspends you in time. And when you're like suspended without words, without movement, or I'm not going to say progression, but without like tangible change, with that comes a self-awareness. And yeah, like, what a way to open this. I don't think I'm going to do a full review of all the different songs. I would just want to like comment randomly. So what really stands out to me is the sound design. Just like a Wes Anderson film will have a sound palette, Sophie has her sound palette, her sonic landscape, and it's really quite tight but not limited, and it forces you to be in another reality that it's not human, but it does not feel inhumane at all. It feels very human, but something that we don't access or ever choose to, or are never encouraged to go into. And that is what Sophie's done. She is, or has been, leaning on these boundaries and passing through and taking from and creating and gifting. What is so amazing is I'm reading different things. For example, before doing this video, I wanted to kind of understand, how does someone pass away trying to look at the moon? So much of this album is otherworldly that it's like, and I don't know whether that was because I was viewing this with the lens of knowing that they've passed away, but I really don't think it is. So much of what I read about her corresponds to what I get from the music. An article, very common article I found from Sophie's lifetime partner, Evita Manji, was saying that she was so curious about what was out there in the cosmos, and that now Sophie is an immaterial girl. And I get that so much with the song Chasing Asymptote. It's amazing how much can be done when it's just kind of the same lyrics repeating and the same kind of sounds repeating, but each time it kind of repeats, it kind of forces, like, drags you in and takes you down and takes you deeper without it all being like repetitive, but it is repeating. It's quite incredible. So I love the new kind of sounds and the landscape that Sophie is presenting, because it's followed by something about the protective dome. The song is called The Dome's Protection. Now this is probably I would say like the masterpiece of the album. I would say it's the synthesis or the genesis of kind of what's created. And I guess first sorts of things that I thought about were, Sophie really does club music, and I kind of feel like when people go into parties and they find themselves in an ecstatic state, and they can connect with things that aren't always accessible through everyday social conformative lifestyle, whether it's going to work or whatever it is. That is the dome's protection. that's what I thought, but now that I think about it more and more, this the dome's protection can be so much and so anything. That song, I experience it, it makes me like philosophize, and it has layers and makes me think about that, and it really kind of puts you in touch with your humanity, but also makes you think about the future and where we're going. It's like, how many musicians or artists really connect with the future? So much of art is about a pastiche of the past and borrowing things from the past and creating vibes, which is amazing and fantastic because I love history so much. And I wouldn't necessarily say I'm very much a forward thinking person. But having an artist, and always the best artists, really are with one foot in the future at least. And Sophie is so much in the future, but in a kind of quantum realm where it's, yeah, like it is future and like humanity's future, but it's also other dimensions. I'm really getting other dimensions, which really, to bring it back, made me think about, like, well, one great way to put it is one of the track songs is called "Do You Really Want to Be Alive?" I love that. Like, I love that the question is being asked. While the idea of not being alive is obviously scary, unless you are suicidal, I think it's a really important question to think about. And just the way that the question's posed takes away all kind of taboos and judgments of good and bad, which I just gave my own insight of, and just makes it very kind of clinical that the question is posed in a way where you totally have the choice. It's even things like having this question and knowing that Sophie's now passed. It's so hard to understand that this album was made, I'm presuming, when that artist thought they were going to be alive, because it has so much contemplation on life and non-life, this reality, alternate realities. It's really quite incredible. It made me think that maybe some other part of Sophie that she was tapping into while creating this album kind of knew that there was going to be a timeless formlessness about her with this album, which is exactly how it was released. We've had someone that is future and forward looking and thinking, and I'd love to say that I could be that person as well and create things, especially now that Sophie's gone. I just think that artists of that caliber are completely important. The only thing I could kind of think of when doing my comparisons is Arca, and not because of their gender identity. It's actually, they're both completely stunningly creative. When I look at the release in 2020 of the Kick anthology, there's just so much density in there, and I guess that's where my comparison is going to stop, is that it's at stopping at the point of so much talent, so much complexity, both very, very different kind of visions and vibes, but musical geniuses. Genii, I don't know if there's a plural for genius. It's kind of strange because I was only getting curious about Sophie through hearing songs, and then when I googled her is when I realised that she passed away. Now this is a couple of years ago. Then I listened to one of her sets at Liverpool, which is on SoundCloud, and I felt energy that I really got into and liked. So I knew that Sophie was extremely talented. I think it's, the family that have released this album have done a really great job. I'm not going to lie. Of course, it would probably be tweaked slightly differently, at least by the artists themselves, but the soundscape is so tuned in. It really is a transport to a different created world. It's an amazing album, and yeah, I mean, how cliche to say this, another person saying this, it is a real loss for music, but something just feels like it was always going to be like this. Hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.